What if I told you that overachieving isn't actually the key to the success that you've been looking for? In fact, it's probably the thing that's been giving you the most stress in your life. Today, we're going to be talking about how embracing mediocrity can actually bring you not only happiness, but will probably provide you the most success that you've seen in a very long time. Hi, my name is Matt with Elevating Yourself, and with 20 years of leadership experience and as somebody that has really been striving to overachieve most of his life, I can tell you that ever since I started embracing my own mediocrity, I have really felt a sense of calm in my work as well as in my personal life that have led me to some really good successes. We're going to be talking a lot about that today. So the first topic is the downside of overachievement. And the first thing on that is really burnout. And I'm sure a lot of you have probably experienced this in your own personal life. Burnout is a very serious concern, and it's honestly something that's out there pretty prevalent. And it is something that happens a lot when you think about overachievement. We work so hard in order to achieve our own success that sometimes we don't realize just the type of pressure we're putting on ourselves. And before you know it, the burnout really starts to set in. And when that happens, I don't think many of us realize that we tend to almost give up in the thing that we're striving towards. And when that happens, we tend to almost shut down a bit. And it is so hard for us to get out of a rut when you've been stuck in burnout. You know, as somebody that has always really tried to overachieve in everything that I do, it is very serious to be thinking about burnout. I worked extremely hard in trying to meet the goals that I had set forth for myself. In my previous job, we were actually rated out of 3 categories. In each of those categories, you could exceed expectations, you could meet expectations, and then you would not meet expectations. And I continued to strive towards exceeding expectations. That is what I pushed for each and every time. And so I continued to push and push and push. And what I felt was at the end of that year, if I didn't receive those exceeds expectation ratings, it really demoralized me. I felt, what would I possibly do now? Like, what is it that I need to do differently? And again, it's not about not bettering myself, but it is a tough place to be in when you look at yourself and you say, you know what? I believe I'm exceeding expectations, but then somebody else's opinion is saying, no, you didn't. You actually met expectations. And I know that in a subjective rating system like this, sometimes it can be hard to really go against that, but you know what? That's just something that I had to deal with. And what was even more stressful was actually exceeding expectations in those areas because I felt completely exhausted towards the end of the year. And to get that exceeds expectations, I was very happy that I was able to accomplish that. But then I started thinking, oh my God, I've got to do this all over again. But I can't tell you how stressed it made me thinking about what I was going to do to really push myself to the next level. And the next piece is perfectionism. When we continue to overachieve time and time again, and we're always striving for that overachievement, we tend to put ourselves on a pedestal that we set goals for ourselves that no person could really achieve. And when we don't meet those goals, we tend to bring ourselves down. We think we've failed. We think it's not good enough. We don't think we're worth it. Imposter syndrome might set in. It's just not worth it in the end. I think perfectionism is a fine thing to always strive towards, but it shouldn't be the thing that drives you. It shouldn't be the thing that really motivates you to doing more. Because realistically, there isn't anything out there that's perfect. You're always continuously moving towards something. You're never going to reach the end of the road. And the final thing is just diminishing returns on happiness. Overachieving leads to some really good dopamine hits, especially when it's recognized, but it is a short-lived happiness. I don't think there's ever a time where I exceeded expectations in any of the categories that I felt this super high for 6 months. It was always 2 days later, I was back at the grind trying to figure out what I need to do differently. And that just doesn't make sense. If you're not going to see this continuing happiness, then what is it really good for? Is it really worth it? And I know what you're going to say. Hey, you know what? I want to make more money. I don't live comfortably and I want to be able to reach that certain role that I can actually make more money. I get it. It makes perfect sense. But what's crazy is as you see income increase, and happiness starts to increase, as soon as your basic needs are met, which is typically about $75,000 a year, once you hit that part, you tend to see happiness plateau. And it's because you've met your basic needs. And so you should then be thinking about what it is that you want to get out of life. What is it that you want to get out of the job that you're currently at? Are there other things that you want to be able to pursue? And again, I'm not speaking of going out and pursuing other avenues of work. I mean, it could be. You might see a different career path for yourself at that point. I don't know. But again, thinking about it from more of a standpoint of, I want to be able to do more with my life. Do I want to travel more? Do I want to take up more hobbies? Do I want to Maybe I want to volunteer more. I mean, there's lots of different avenues out there, but you have to be thinking about what it is that's going to continue your own happiness that doesn't consist of this overachieving attitude. And it reminds me of this story I heard recently that was talking about this American that was down in Mexico on vacation, and he met a local person who went out fishing every day. And so the American went out with the fisherman and he was like, hey, what is it that you do most of the day? And he's like, I fish for part of the day. I catch what I need. I bring it home. We cook it up. We sit around the fire and we talk with my family. It's really amazing. And the American looked at the guy and he was like, that's really stupid. Why don't you fish for most of the day and then you'll catch more fish that you can sell in town? And the fisherman's like, well, why would I want to do that? And he's like, well, by getting more money, you might be able to hire on some of your friends who can then also fish for most of the day. And once you've done that, you can make even more money. And the fisherman goes, well, why would I want to do that? And he said, well, then you might be able to open up a production facility, maybe in the United States, where you can ship and package all of your fish and sell it to people for an even bigger profit. And then the fisherman goes, well, why would I want to do that? And he said, because then you could fish for a part of the day and sit around the campfire with your family and enjoy yourself. And it's amazing to think about that. Like, why do we work so hard when we could have the things that we really want right now? Doesn't it make more sense to enjoy life maybe in your younger self or before you start to retire? Maybe not. Maybe some of your drive is to continue on a path of success, and maybe your success is making more money. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I think most people will find that their happiness comes from the activities they're able to do outside of the work. And that, I think, is something we should all strive for. So the next part is the benefits of embracing good enough. And the first piece of that is freedom of stress. When you look away from this journey about perfection, you really do reduce the amount of stress and increase mental health in your day-to-day. Now, I'm not saying that you're going to have to eliminate it, but you will definitely alleviate a lot of the stress by not continuing to focus on overachieving. Think about what it is that you can do in your day-to-day that will meet the requirements necessary, and don't always go past that. I'm not saying that you're always going to be stopping at that line, and you should never just draw this hard line where you don't go beyond it, but you should really work very hard to make sure that your stress levels are not elevating higher than they need to be. The next is a work-life balance. I'm sure you've probably heard work-life balance before. I've talked about it even in some of my other videos. Again, work-life balance isn't this half the day is work, half the day is my personal life. It is this intermingling of both of them together. But what you have to be thinking about is, what is it that I need to do that I can really start to think about? What are my hobbies that I want to do? What are some other additional activities that might exist in my life that I want to pursue outside of work? And how can I do that within the confines of my job? Are you working in a job that allows you the time and the ability to do those things? If not, then maybe start thinking about what you need to do differently. I was constantly motivated to really be as high of a leader as I possibly could be. And again, I'm always continuing to look for ways that I can make impacts in my day-to-day. And it's not to say that I would never pursue jobs because of this mindset, but I can tell you that I'm not really pushing myself to really go above and beyond. And it's tiresome to think about all the things that you have to do to potentially get the attention of the leaders above you to give you those promotions. And again, if you want to pursue those things, I want you to be able to be as successful as you possibly can be. But again, I don't want everyone to feel so much stress because of it. I think a work-life balance is absolutely something that everyone should be looking for, because it is something that is going to alleviate things like stress and bring you happiness in your life. And the last is sustainable success. It is a steady workflow that allows you to work at a pace that is both good for the company and also very good for you. I don't think everyone should be out there killing themselves for something that they see no benefit from. And again, what I think you'll find is by looking for the sustainability of it, you are going to find a lot more success than just looking at pushing yourself as fast as hard as you possibly can do in order to get the results that somebody else wants. So now let's talk about personal development through balance. The first thing is long-term success versus short-term gains. I think this is a pretty important topic because we do live in an instant gratification society now, but I don't think people realize that thinking about your own sustained growth and how long it takes is sometimes more beneficial than what you see in the short-term run. Many people nowadays want things to be successful right here and now. They don't understand that change, like real change, sometimes takes time in order to see the successes from it. And it is hard when you live in this type of environment not to expect things right away. But you have to be focused on what it is that's going to give you the most benefit. And I think you'll find that if you look for your sustainability, you are going to see a lot more long-term gains than you will in your short-term successes. So let's talk about some actionable tips that you can embrace this good enough attitude. The first one is setting yourself realistic goals. I think this is an important piece of any type of success. Think about what it is that you want to accomplish. And again, peel back some layers. You might have to look at the goal that you want and maybe take a couple steps back to see what it is that you need first. I was talking to a friend of mine recently that was talking about how he really wanted to make money in his content development. And I think that's fine. I think that's great that you're able to do that. But you can't always just start it and do it right away. I mean, thinking about this video right now, my YouTube channel is pretty small. And if I came into this with the attitude of, I want to make money, I might feel much more stressed out when the videos don't make money. And so instead, my attitude around video editing and video creation and content creation in general is that I love doing it. It's fun to explore yourself. It's fun to put yourself in an environment that makes you a little bit uncomfortable. I mean, when you're uncomfortable, you are growing tremendously. And this type of environment really does kind of make me uncomfortable. But with every single video that I have made, I have felt a lot more comfortable. And I think that is an area that we can all really embrace. And so setting yourself goals can really make yourself very successful. But again, make sure they're realistic. Make sure there's something that you can really attain easy. The next piece is prioritizing well-being. I can't tell you how important it is for you to make sure that you are taking care of yourself. Take time off of work if you need to. Take a day off if you need to, whatever it is. But again, make sure when you do take that time or whatever breaks you need in order to regain that mental well-being, that you're doing things that are productive in that capacity. Too many times I've seen people take time off of work and they work in an environment where they're primarily on their computer and they play video games. Yes, it is a different type of action, but sometimes our brain doesn't see the distinction. It sees screen, it sees screen. And again, I'm not telling everybody out there to start going on walks or taking vacations and hiking and stuff like that, but incorporating those things into your life might be very beneficial. I can tell you that after I started exercising and eating right and then having this mentality change really has helped me out. I get stressed at work though, don't get me wrong. I don't think stress is ever going to be gone. I think there's always going to be some type of stress in your life. But I can tell you that from 5 years ago, I am far less stressed because I really focused on my own well-being. And I suggest you do the same. And then finally is just accepting imperfection. It is okay to fail. It is okay if you are not perfect. Again, you don't know something until you learn it. And I have this conversation with my kids all the time. They get frustrated with school. And I'm telling them, it's school. Like, you're going to find situations where you don't know stuff. In fact, every single year that you progress in school, you are going to be put up against something that you don't know. Nobody in the class is looking at you and saying, they're stupid. You're just dumb because you don't know that. Of course not. You don't know it until you do. And the only way to do that is to learn it. And that is why a learning mentality can really help you out along the way. So don't stress about being perfect. In fact, embrace that imperfection, run with it as hard as you possibly can, and I guarantee you that you will be a lot happier in the end. Thanks so much for watching today. I appreciate it. Again, I'm not saying that you shouldn't have an ambitious attitude. I'm just saying that it is okay sometimes to be in a position where just good enough is good enough, and that you can take that extra time to really do things that make you happy. You should not feel bad that you want to do other things. And so think about the role that you're currently in. Is this something that you can do that allows you to do the things that you really want to do? And if not, then yeah, maybe you do need to work a little bit harder. Maybe you do need to get into a different line of work. It's a possibility. But just think about what your well-being is, think about what you want to accomplish, and put that first. Look at the things that you're currently doing in your life that really bring you joy, and make sure that is the focal point. Please make sure to check out some of the other videos I've got posted. I definitely like sharing this information. If there's things that you want to hear about, or if there's topics that you'd like to see, please let me know. I'd really like to hear from you. Remember, elevating yourself to the next level starts with just a single step. Make sure you take that step today. We'll see you next time.